This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Welcome to our new time slot as well. We are now 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us and for listening. So today we have an exciting show in regards to the solves of Harriette Sucher on the Paul Stine letter after the Paul Stine murder. Nolan Del Campo will be joining us today as well. So I'd like to bring all of them on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a funny question to ask. Last week,
yes,
you said, "Oh my God, what's that unearthly sound?" And then Nolan was like, "Harriet." I think all I know is I do remember lightly burping
last week.
So all I know is I was reviewing.
Yeah, not show material, but thank you.
well, all I wanted to let people know is a belated pardon me, just in case.
Yeah, nobody heard, nobody knew. We would all been great without that.
I was thinking that would be funny, that I would be famous for the burp heard round the world on the network.
I thought it was an earthquake.
Thought it was an earthquake.
So anyways, I just wanted to literally clear the air there.
Evidently you did. But last week we weren't on. It was the week before, right? Yeah.
I think so.
It's been a minute.
We were doing something, but anyways, so we're here, and I got the solve in here, and awesome. The other one, from this one, I'm pulling out papers.
That's okay. I'm going to have those up on the presentation for everyone to see. So I'm going to go ahead and have the presentation popped up at this point, and then that way we can start going over some of those things. So again, starting out with why Jack is the Zodiac. Today we're going to talk about the cipher solves, the grill cipher, anagrams, Latin substitutions, several different methods. Correct, Harriette?
Yeah.
Great. And these are all going to be based on the Paul Stine letter, which is him taking credit for the actual crime of shooting Paul Stine, and which case he had also mailed in a piece of the shirt. And I've got some interesting questions about this shirt because in my research, I've kind of looked at some things, and we're going to go over those. But for right now, I just threw up these original wanted posters by the SFPD. We can see if anybody takes a close look, they can see the differences within 5 days. So one wanted poster was October 13th, 1969. The second one was an amended poster done October 18th, 1969. For the most part, what I can see is that they added some wrinkles to the forehead. They added some wrinkles to the neck, which is what I'm assuming when they talked a little bit about a turkey neck and why they were able to age this individual who was the suspect into his early 40s. Sorry. We can also see here that they have outlined all of these particular composites with what appears to be a clear, I would presume, now, Nolan, you tell me if I'm wrong, you work in the criminal field, but if somebody was to put out a composite with, and let's say the Zodiac was seen with black rim glasses, wouldn't we see that on the composite?
Yes, you would think so.
Right? I mean, because this gives me
should be as accurate as you can be, yeah.
Right. And so when I look at these with these clear frames, it's telling me that these are clear. We do know that they stated that they were plastic frames. In one case, somebody indicated heavy rimmed, and I'm not sure what they mean by heavy rimmed, but by the looks of these, it would tell me that these were clear. And when I look at Jack's photos, predominantly, he tends to like a clear frame eyeglass.
Mhm.
He's probably a little egotistical, narcissistic, maybe even, and he likes his face to be seen, not his glasses. And we can see that even up here, while there's more of a brown tint to the top, we can still see that the bottom is still a clear plastic. We do have a match there with that. At any rate, that brings us to the Paul Stine letter, which we're going to be discussing both the letter and the solves today. This one was taken in on the known Zodiac letters from the FOIA files, in which case they did process for DNA and they did find few cells. Now, we don't know whose cells they are, since we were just told, I guess, within the last couple weeks through Dennis's book that Jack would actually use somebody else's spit from a canteen as if he was having individual spit in it, and then he was using that to actually lubricate his envelopes. Anyways,
That's smart.
shirt, right? Well, and they did say that they got 2 DNA sources off of Jack's letter, but they weren't able to, or neither of them were actually Jack's DNA. So yes, he's definitely sealing his letters with somebody else's DNA.
Danny Reynolds' DNA.
Right. Well, these were
Danny
letters.
Reynolds' DNA came up.
These were actually, I believe these letters were actually later in life, because they were something that Dennis had that either Jack had mailed to Nora or had mailed to Dennis himself. And so he had provided those envelopes to the FBI.
He must have knew about the future of DNA. I mean, he is the Zodiac and what he's involved with. So he was just playing it careful.
Safe. Exactly. So on October 11th, 1969, the letter for Paul Stine, I think it says 10/13/69 here. So we know that October 11th, 1969 was the actual murder date, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So following that murder, 2 days later, enclosed with this piece of shirt right here is a letter that is mailed to the San Francisco Chronicle. And it says, this is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a blood-stained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area. The San Francisco police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly instead of holding road races with their motorcycles, seeing who could make the most noise. The car drivers should have just parked their car and sat there quietly waiting for me to come out of cover. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. Signed off, the Zodiac. Okay, we do have a receipt there of October 13th. Now, a couple things I want to notate about this is that I showed some consistency with this letter, including this area right here of the ing, where it becomes increasingly smaller than the balance of the word. And that was something that both Zodiac and Jack showed a habit of doing. He's talking about the Park Julius Kahn playground, which is where he snuck into in the Presidio. Playgrounds are a MO in the serial killings, and we see make nice targets as something that was stated in the Scorpion letters that go to John Walsh at a later date. He is saying to prove that he is the killer is his need for recognition and being taken seriously for these crimes. And he's taking blame for the North Bay area murders, which we know we just covered a majority of those. Splitting of the words, like the word instead. Let's see where we have that. Right here. Nice big giant space, stead. Splitting of the words is something we notated for both Zodiac and Jack. Faulting the police for screwing around. Of course, he's going to call them out because he does indeed feel that he is better at this point than law enforcement and FBI. We will later see that he also includes the CIA, which kind of led me to think that maybe he was NSA, right?
I'm understanding lately now that some of the things I've done recently that we're going to cover soon. And he's definitely CIA circa 70, 71. So I think he's the CIA, and he doesn't really want to talk about it.
He must have contacts.
Yeah,
what's the word they use in the Bourne movies?
Handlers?
Or no, the actual assassins. I forget what they call them. Yeah. No,
he was
Manchurian Candidate?
Assets.
Mm-hmm.
Assets. Yeah. I know this letter, this is the one that he included the swath of Paul Stine's bloody clothing, right?
Right. I have that right up here. This is purportedly the piece of shirt that actually came in that letter. Mm-hmm. So he also mentions pick off the kiddies, which is a statement that is written in a later communication in the Atlanta, Georgia child killer case. The school bus scare to give the cops some busy work. So Jack, we know at this point in time was living in a converted school bus. And I've heard now from Moonlight, which we'll be talking about some information she has given here recently, but she also believes that the Zodiac was saying that he was the bomb. And I have said for many years that I felt that that's exactly what he was saying. He's the bomb that they're looking for.
Yeah, he's full of explosive material.
Yes, he is.
When he's got to say, yeah. Jeez.
And then last but not least, in regards to the makeup of this letter, we saw the hyphenation of words again. So here is target. Let's see. Make nice. Well, I am not even sure. He said targ has a hyphen, and then it goes on to okay. Oh no, that's et. Sorry, I need my glasses clearly. So yes, he hyphenates words at the end of a sentence. He hyphenates mid-sentence. So again, that was just another criteria for handwriting that we had that was consistent. So that actually brings me into some of the other things that I found inside the letter, which is I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area. Motorcycles is spelled incorrectly. Front is spelled incorrectly. Kitties as they come bouncing out is an unusual phrase, obviously. And then the envelope, please rush to editor. The backside of the envelope said, please. And I'm assuming must have been rush again, but I was unable to read that to editor. Mm-hmm. Now, they did mention here after going. So he was wiping down the cab with a handkerchief after going through the victim's pockets, then dash up Cherry Street to in the direction of the Presidio. Later reports indicated someone was seen running into Julius Kahn Playground in the Presidio, and all 7 police dog units were pressed into the search. The suspect was described as white, about 40, 170 pounds, a blonde crew cut. So we keep getting these varying degrees of size and weight and age. And obviously we know that the newspapers are never going to be accurate on producing those numbers. And that's why we all have something to argue about at the end of the day, because I watched Fox 40, you watched CNN, and you watched either way, we've all watched something different. We all have different numbers, and it all gives us something to sit around and argue about. Again, here's a close-up of that swath shirt. Now, that brings us. Is that you? You got some sirens in the back? That's perfect for the crime show.
Yeah, sirens. They're still chasing Jack.
It is Davis.
Okay.
So that brings us up to what will be the first solve that Harriette is going to talk about, and that is the grill cipher solve of the Paul Stine letter. Now, let's see. You had, this one was based on taking the 340, right? Or is it the Z408 as the grill cipher, and you laid that over the top. What's that?
Oh, nothing.
Oh.
So
you laid the Z.
It's going on top of the Z408 and picking out where the odd dots and blobs are, as much as I can, because I think this is again my 8th or 9th, maybe 10th that I done at the time, and picking out, and who knew that that's what was saying in the Dear Sergeant Lynch card. You take this and put it on top, and where the weird dots and blobs, misspelt punctuation things, You pick out the code symbols and then the code keys and then anagram. So yeah, that's and I tried to line it up as best as I could, which row and so on. But
so basically, all of these marks up here is at some point where the grill cipher lined up with these particular letters. So why the SF, or is that just the punctuation that caused you to look at those?
Because it was it was something unusual. Instead of San Francisco Police, it's saying SF. So I thought, and it's capitalized too.
Which it should be.
Stood out, and then it worked because it came out with a message.
All right, so, and that message, you want to read that one for us?
Yeah, the message I came out with was, and it's saying in the book, The World According to Jack Torrance, this is a Z408 grill cipher, then anagram, which mentions Paul Stine. It says, Jim C. Darlene hit RK ICU, victim met Paul Lee Stine East PA, or Jim Phillips, see Darlene hit Robert Kennedy intensive care unit, victim, which is Darlene, met Paul Lee Stine, East Pennsylvania.
That kind of goes to the theory that Darlene Barron was the girl in the polka dot dress in the RFK assassination.
Yeah.
Who's Jim Phillips?
That's her first husband. And he's
Jim. I thought it was Crabtree.
It's Jim Phillips Crabtree because he was adopted. So
gotcha.
Anyways,
Crabtree was his
he's a trained
name?
assassin by the military. That's the things that people were quietly not wanting to talk about for years. That's why they thought Jim Phillips might be the Zodiac in the early 70s, but he's not. But and that's what it says in the book. It says Darlene Farron was born Darlene Suenit, married Jim Phillips, a military man and trained assassin, 1960s, divorced and quickly married Dean Farron. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering who Phillips was, and I just never. Okay, we now know. So that's Jim Crabtree, which everybody will recognize that name as her former husband. All right. Now, on the next one, is this is actually the, is this the actual way that you solved it? These circles that you placed over the top of it?
That's from Dennis's book. Well, it's the first book, Orbis Centifer, that's not fully out.
Oh, these are the first letters of each word?
Yeah, and that's the one that, for some reason, and that's in Orbis Centifer, is for some reason, I don't know exactly why now. Why did Lawrence Swearingen say, Harriette, I think you can do this. Each first word of each letter is Latin and it decodes into a message. And that's when we were all parting ways. He had stopped dealing with you. And my last phone call with him was he was telling me that there's a message there. I believe you can do it. And so I'm circling all the first letters of each word, and it came out with an amazing message. So,
So basically, how did you attribute those particular letters to some Latin word?
That's what he said. Look up the Latin phrases, look up, and we're talking about things that could take hours, which it did. And so it came out with something amazing.
Okay, so I've pulled that in. So basically the first letter of all the words we can see right here. Here's the main part of the Zodiac letter. Let's see. First letter of each word is the IATMOTTDOB. Now, so then you literally wrote it in that order, but then let's say IA, you interpreted that to be inter alia.
Yeah. And,
what made you attribute those particular words to those letters?
Well, I had to see which words are going to meld with something else. Once we understood that Jack was CIA or something of intel with IA inter alias, he's using that a lot in the future ones that I've done. It means that he's in disguise, or he's a spy, or somebody else is in disguise or a spy. It means it means a different alias. Anyways,
so then let's take a look at what that actually worked out to be. You have, let me see. Oh, I thought I had inter alia. Okay, here is the actual solve itself. So we'll come back to this other bottom portion. But if you want to read that solve as it pertains to the Latin version.
Yeah, this one took months to do, but let's give it a try. Inter alia tempora mutanere, o tempora tempus die obit bona verum ensium, sic per se mundus senescet leget eme, nunc tubar pace, or pace, sorry, that's Latin. Anyways, tua honoris inter alios bona saio per o honoris sic inter alios tempora stet momento veritas vincent de in tempora per in totus noli bono Arabustinio, that's an important phrase, by the way. Anyways, semper forte per cave hinc compus mentis legit eme, nunc in totus homo sic timor papal palis in ordine, homo rosa rubicundior, verem ensium timor mortis saio, verem ensium compus mentis timor mortis noli tubari corpus delecti sic honoris judicium patriarch tuedor consensa per se stet trinis quad verum ensium fortunae mea totus circa omnia omnibus cave sic causa mortis sinc testimonium in tempore in sic verum obit absolvo. I don't speak Latin.
I know.
So anyways,
translated into English.
Yes, we're going to.
There's going to be the translation into English. Seo bonos sicilit momento judeo stet orata tua facto testis per se tua pater omnipotens tempus calastre ane tibe corde beatus ordine.
Now, just before we move on, one of the things I noticed is that you had die obit up here. Now, die obit is actually one of the solves that Lawrence Swearingham came up with, where time parite obite. I think we talked about that in the original 340 or the 408, the 408 cipher where he talked, and that actually came out in his. So this will be interesting.
Well, let's see. I think this is why he was, because I was understanding that, how to look it up and all kinds of complexities. He said, Harriet, I think you can do this. So, it took 4 months to do this.
Now, and I want to also quote that the FBI, the FOIA files discuss the use of decoding as being the first letter of the word. And Lauren, like you said, Lawrence Swearingham had backed you in this concept. So this is actually what this letter says. So let's go ahead and read the English version that people will understand.
It's amazing. Okay. Among other things, time changes. Oh, the times, the day one died, a good hero. Thus and by itself, the world grows old lawfully. Now in Book of Secrets, I will protect with your permission, honor among aliases, the agents and people with other names whose good I know for honor among aliases. This time, let it stand, but remember, truth conquers, given in time for all, because it is not good to hold the wolf by its ears, as it is dangerous. It is a dangerous situation to hold or let go. Must remain brave, for beware mind control.
Oh no. We froze up.
Harriet's audio.
Oh. Well, no, it looks like she completely froze.
Oh, she's frozen, yeah.
All right, I'm going to keep reading this because...
Do you want to continue reading it? Yeah,
yeah.
Please, yeah.
So, must remain brave for beware mind control, now legal in total as one, thus fear Pope Paulus documents respectfully in order. One red rose hero I know is of sane mind, so in fear of death, do not disturb body of the offense trial, investigations judge. Your patriarchy, I will protect things to be corrected and essentially stand 3 times that of a hero. Artisan of my fate all around, all things to all men beware, because of death, now testimony in the book of secrets. In time such hero is absolved, who I know is good, when permitted to know. Remember Judith, let it stand, and speak your facts witnessed, and essentially your almighty Pope, who cannot lie, as witnessed from your prettiest youth to beautiful old womanhood. We consecrate your young man to good order. Oh. So, are you still there, Nolan? Okay, I saw you looked away.
Yeah.
So some of the interesting points that came up in this was holding the wolf by the ears. The reference to Judith, I think Judith Baker is somebody that she had spoken about in regards to information in regards to the JFK crime. Let's see. Oh, I hope she climbs back on. There is the mention of mind control.
Hello?
Hello? Are you here?
Unstable internet connection.
Well,
Oh,
you and
shit.
Harriette both. I can still hear you. Can
Yeah,
you
I'm
hear
having
me?
problems. Yeah, thing
Well,
is,
so
I'm
is
going on
Harriette.
battery power. I can hear you now, but
Okay.
I'm not plugged into a wall. I'm just going on battery power, so that's probably part of my problem. Because inside it was too loud. It's been loud outside
Gotcha.
too.
Well, we were just stating that there were some things about Judith Baker, who was involved somehow with the JFK stuff. I hope Harriet's able to climb back on to kind of sort this out and explain this to us. I'll just kind of move on to one of the theories that we went to, because she talked about the wolf. And when I looked up the wolf in regards to, let's say, politicians and politics and things of that nature, I came up with a few societies out of Yale. One of them was the Skull and Bones Society, which was a secret society at Yale. The presidency of this order is chosen by blood, not by achievement or academia. So the likes of George H.W. Bush and his son George W. Bush, and pretty much you must have been the elite of the elite going to Yale to get into this society. Morrison R. Waite was actually a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who was also in the society. I noted that because we saw Jack misspell the word wait, or use the word wait with an E at the end of it in a couple places. Probably purely a coincidence, but he was a member of Skull and Bones. Waite is actually used in the lipstick murder and the Sorry Mary letter, which was to been a hit at Hoover. Now, I did kind of put the URLs up here. We also found one about the Wolf's Head Society, and I also found one about the Scroll and Key. The interesting part about the Scroll and Key Society is that at Yale, is that this began as a result of the individuals who didn't believe that blood versus academics dictated who was in and who was out of these secret societies. So they went and created their own secret society, the Scroll and Key, based on academia and not blood. Then that actually spilled off into, actually, let's take a look at some of the members here. We had Cordmeyer Jr., which I
CIA.
showed. Right. Cordmeyer from Another Wife, or Mary Pinchot Meyer, who is part of this display as a murder victim. So we had a Meyer relation. We had the Chicago Tribune's Robert R. McCormick. We had the Southern Pacific Railroad owner, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, Seymour Knox, the American retailer F.W. Woolworth Company. We know that the paper, one of the letters that the Zodiac wrote in on was from F.W. Woolworth Company. I joked about the Myers murder being the time and place where Jack picked up the paper that he used. So there may be some type of connection there, but that would have been when he would have had access to grab the paper for the upcoming murder. Benjamin Brewster, who is Standard Oil and Exxon, the Watergate special prosecutor, university presidents and political figures, and journalists alike were all entered into the Scroll and Key Society. Then there was a third spinoff. Obviously, people are just not ready to accept not being part of these secret societies, so they just keep developing new ones. I'll come right back to you in a second.
That's fine.
And then we had the Wolf's Head Society, which is another secret society at Yale, which is another spinoff after the Scroll and Key. So you will still undoubtedly be filthy rich to be in any of these organizations and part of the political making atmosphere of our United States and maybe even the world. So let's take that back now, and maybe you can give us some explanation to the. I went ahead and I finished reading that solve, Harriette. So.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, once I got to the bottom, it's about this time period, because I'm seeing that the person is Judith. And had just found out that Judith Very Baker did know Oswald, and she was trying now 50 years later to turn things around. He's predicting here that there's going to be a time where we're going to deal with the truth as to who really killed Kennedy, that there was going to be secrets kept even by Pope Paul. There was Pope Paul documents that Oswald had some kind of connection to. And this is way back, how many decades? And now we're fast forwarding to now, that there was changes that were supposed to become after the secrets of keeping, who killed Kennedy and why, because in my view, after doing this, that they were trying to keep that actually secret, because they were really going to go after those who killed the Kennedys and even Martin Luther King. So, but you can see the mind control thing. Oh my God.
Yes.
There was a lot of people that were under mind control.
Go ahead,
when
Nolan.
they asked Gordon Meyer who killed Mary Pete Schomeyer, he said same people that killed Kennedy. And he worked for the group. He worked for the CIA. So he was basically saying we killed him.
Wow. That just gave me goosebumps. That's kind of scary.
It's saying at the bottom, it says, we will concentrate your young man to good order. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of people at the time, of course, were being force-fed that Oswald is the one who did it. Don't ask questions. Right. And there are people now in about this time period who are able to clean up some of the older film, of other people's pictures. And it's showing that Oswald was downstairs in the doorway standing next to Billy Shelley. That he was actually and I've been to Dallas, I've been to the Dealey Palace. Oh my God, there's just no way a shot could come from that window. So here we are, it's all these years later, but he's predicting that there's going to be a time that we will have to reverse and rewrite history.
Are you telling me you don't believe in things like the movie The Matrix with Keanu Reeves, where bullets actually curve and make corners? And
oh yeah. And you know what? My God, my bad. You know what? I'm wrong. It's got to be Gary Post. So, I mean, let's just wrap up the show.
I'm gonna take us back a couple slides here, because you also found a message at the bottom. It says Harriette Sucher's Stine letter method for solve is described in the message just as it was in the Sergeant Lynch letter. So an anagram, this is the Zodiac speaking. You anagram just that section, correct?
Yeah.
And that came up with 11 GHENHE is ZSSPTTKDOA. Can you tell us what all that means?
Yeah, 11 GHE. Let's see, I'm trying to read it. Is it in the book?
It's page 23 of Orbis Cinifer.
Okay, thank you for reminding me about my own book. Okay.
It's that's unfair. It's on my presentation right in front of my face.
There
so
it is.
Not like I
see. I got it.
Perfect. So
Okay,
can you tell us what that message reads?
It says, Guy Bannister, GHE. So let's see, Bannister Oswald E for layout plan. That's a building, like where you're doing a layout. The shape is a layout. And then it says to save JFK, and then N for Nagel. He is
Nagel.
Nagel, sorry. Anyways,
he was the subject of a book by Dick Russell called The Man Who Knew Too Much, which is about he was trying to thwart the Kennedy assassination. Nagel was, because he was in on it, and he didn't want Kennedy to be murdered, but
I'm getting goosebumps again.
Yeah.
Woo.
Well, it's basically saying he is Z motorcade, the shape of the motorcade route, which, anyways, it says change, and then Secret Service, that's SS, P for hired gun, bang, Tattletale. Oh my God, Jack and his TTs, Tattletale. And anyways, Kennedy, DOA, dead on arrival. So you're saying something about that there was a change in the motorcade route, which it was true. It was last second.
Yes.
And so instead of zigzagging, they went a different way. And it made it easier to hit JFK.
So how did you come to?
Go ahead. I was going to say, by making the turn, changing the motorcade route, the limo had to slow down, making it easier to shoot him.
Yeah, see, that's what. Yeah.
Now you attributed the letter P to hired gun.
That was Lawrence Swearingen's thing. The P looked like a gun.
Because Terry Batcher has been saying the same thing this entire time. The R's and that the different letters appeared to imitate weapons, like either a noose by rope, or a gun, or a knife, or things like that. So very interesting. All right, so we have another message that has kind of yielded itself out to something that is now known. But have you ever read Nagel's book, Harriette?
No.
So very interesting, Nolan, that she comes up with a solve that is fairly similar to what Nagel is stating in his own book, correct?
Well, yeah, it's actually Dick Russell wrote the biography of Nagel.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
And he says these
but
things.
It's about the plot to assassinate Kennedy and Nagel's involvement. And there's a lot about Oswald in the book, too. So Oswald was part of a bigger plot, but he was truly a patsy.
Gotcha.
So, but you see the part where it says that how just even Paul Stine in anagrams in Latin, please use Latin and French.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So so like the Sergeant Lynch letter giving them an idea of how to use the 408 plus the codes. Now Paul Stine is mentioning anagrams and using the Latin in French, or please use Latin, basically. And so that kind of backs up.
This is when I'm getting my feet wet trying to do these things.
Right. And, these are some of your
swearing dead or alive, because we think I think I heard he died, but anyways, he had faith in me,
Right. All right. So you also came out with another, like, it looks bottom of the letter anagram after targets. So targets was your cutoff point on the Paul Stine letter, and then that bottom portion became, you said, an anagram, right?
I'm looking for it. Okay, which page am I?
I don't actually have the page number on this one, but it definitely looks like something out of you might have sent this to me. This is very old, from 2014 in my presentation. Yeah, it's on the screen if you want to read the bottom portion of it.
Let's see. It says P.S. Bob K. O. It says postscript, Bobby Kennedy - Oswald Mafioso Secret Service Tattletale at CIA Technical Services, signed Jack W.T., I believe. But he's saying signed Jack. It's a message for Jack. He's trying to relay a message that you got some pretty bad people in the Secret Service.
So we got the anagram of these letters came out to PS Bob KO Mafioso SS TT at CIA is JWT. And funny, he keeps saying tattletale because he sounds like a tattletale based on all your solves.
Oh yeah, just wait until you see the 2001 anthrax letters.
So signed off.
Tattletale.
Signed off though at the end is JWT. So you end up with JWT as leftover letters, and that is Jack W. Terrence, folks.
That's very common for Jack to do that when you're doing these anagrams, and then you're like, okay, I'm left with a couple of letters. Oh, my first experience was JT. Oh, that means Jack Torrance. Okay,
right?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to step into actually something that is involved with Moonlight. I've been hearing from her quite often about how this blue Chevy that Jack and Nora are standing in front of, which I am now believing that this letter or this picture is probably more circa 1972, because we have them dressed in summer attire. We have full trees all the way around. It doesn't look like it's wintertime. And it turns out that this vehicle was actually owned by Nora, not by Jack. So the ice blue Chevy that Dennis has claimed was Jack Terrence's this entire time actually was purchased in December 7th of 1971 by Nora. Now, I'm not going to state that this means that it is not available to Jack before this. Jack is known to buy vehicles from family members. This could have been something that either a family member owned or was circulating around in the group, and Nora bought it from that person. So I'm not going to say he absolutely didn't have access to it, but based on this document, it is supporting that Nora didn't even own it until 1971. So that kind of rules out him having access to at this point anyways, unless I find other evidence that suggests otherwise, rules out him having owned this vehicle or been in this vehicle in 1969. Now, of course, I had to use somebody else's registration slip in order to make out some of these numbers and determine what they meant. But I was able to map out the VIN number and the body style or type. It is a Chevy. Oh gosh, what was this one again? This is the class was an AL. And of course, we see that it was made in 1964. So it is a 1964 Chevy that was purchased by Nora in 71, and she sold it in 1975. It looks like just before they moved to Cotton, Minnesota. And some further information that I found on that was after breaking apart the VIN number. So basically, the VIN number for Chevys during this time frame, the first letter or the first number was the year. So this is a 1964. The second one is a car series, which is an 11. And if you look over here, the 11 was a Biscayne 1100 series 6-cylinder. Fourth and fifth numbers are actually the body style. So it was a 2-door sedan, basically. And then the L is the assembly plant, which was Los Angeles. And then finally, the actual serial number or the tag number for that vehicle, in which case that is the number which it was produced. So it was 190,497th in the line of these Chevy Biscaynes. So basically, after looking this up, and I found it on oldride.com, it's a plethora of information for old vehicles. I'm going to begin using that for all of the vehicles that we have in registrations just to make identifications of those cars. But when we get right down to it, I also pulled a picture of the Chevy Biscayne. One of the things I want to note here is this panel right here behind the actual window, which of course this one is a 2-door, not a 4-door, but we can see that the panel is the same there. We can see that the elongation of the actual trunk is consistent with what we see in the background here. Also, this area right here of the body, which has a ridge over the top of the name, that ridge is plainly seen here. We can see a little bit of the name that's peeking out there with a secondary ridge on the bottom that goes right over the rear tire. Let's see, the gas tank is also right in smack dab at the point where the hinge of the trunk goes. We can see here again, there is a gas tank that goes right where the hinge is. And one of the things I want everybody to notice is that this Chevy Biscayne at that time, a 1964 model, had rounded taillights. And the taillights were described by the three youths at Lake Berryessa as being long rather than round. So they were not round taillights. And I think this is how they came to the conclusion that it was a late 1960. They called it a late model. Now, can anybody explain this to me? It's 1969. And is 1967 and 1966 considered a late model at that time?
Yeah, it would be a recent, late as in recent model.
Oh, okay. So yes, because I found that in 1966, the full-size Chevy Impala, Bel Air, and Biscayne took a step down as the Caprice became the new top-of-the-line Chevrolet full-sized model, thus taking over the Impala's luxury image. 1966 Chevy full-size styling changes included the loss of the famous signature round taillights, which had been an Impala trademark since 1958. So now we have a new large rectangular ones, replace them along with a more massively styled front end. So now we can see these long rather than circular or round taillights as the teenagers had described.
Somebody's knocking at the door.
My dad had a 64 Impala, and the most popular model at that time was the Super Sport. They were a lot smaller than this Biscayne model. They started getting bigger in 65 and 66. But in 64, which is the most popular of that era of the Impalas, the 64 Super Sport, it was more compact.
Well, and that just kind of brings us to the point that the model of the vehicle has to be a 66 or a 67. We can clearly see that Nora's vehicle was a 64 based on the registration. So we know that these are not the same vehicles that were her vehicle standing behind or sitting behind her and Jack is not the vehicle that was cited, in my opinion.
No, Dennis was mistaken.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, let's see. Okay. Well, then that leaves us up to free talk for about 3 minutes, because that's really all I wanted to get out there is that I've excluded this car as being Jack's. I've excluded this car as one that was used or seen at Lake Berryessa. We are definitely looking for something with the longer rather than circular taillights. And of course, there is still that impression of the blue, whether it's light blue, sky blue, ice blue. We're going to talk about that later on when we get to it. But either way, that car was not part of this particular crime spree. So is there anything else you guys want to add or talk about in regards to what we discussed?
I just wanted to bring up what I'm seeing right very after the Stine decodes, that Jack is bringing up about having a black GT. So he had access to vehicles. They were making sure that they were supplied to him. So, and some of them, like you just noted, that some of them might look like a 1966 vehicle, but there was a lot of competition, within the vehicle world. So if it was a popular make of 1966, somebody else, the Ford, would try to copy and do something very similar. So we got a lot of similar looking vehicles, just different years.
Well, I know that what I've seen so far, and we're going to discuss next week the summary of all the evidence in the Zodiac case after all of these attacks, but that there was mention of having seen a white Chevy Impala, a brown, some type of a brown car. I don't know if that was the Renault Caravelle. Do you recall any of those cars?
No.
Harriet?
Oh,
I think Jack was said to have owned a brown Ford Falcon.
I think he had access to these vehicles.
We've lost your audio.
Oh, lost my audio again?
And then also the blue Chevy. However, in researching all of that, none of the evidence or the information that I have from the driver of the Chevy is consistent with the Zodiac Killer sighting. So it is at the time now that we have to say goodbye. I look forward to doing the summary and recap of evidence with you guys next week. Everybody have a beautiful weekend. Thank you, Harriet and Nolan, for being here. Everybody have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too. Don't fry outside.
We lost everybody's audio. All right.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
We're out.
Bye.
Peace.
Oh,